I serve a risen Savior, He's in the world today. I know that He is living, whatever men may say. I see His hand of mercy, I hear His voice of cheer. And just the time I need Him, He's always near. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me, a long life's there away. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives within my heart. In all the world around me, I see His loving care. And though my heart grows weary, I never will despair. I know that He is leading through all the stormy blasts. The day of His appearing will come at last. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me, a long life's there away. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know He lives within my heart. Angry words, oh let them never from my tongue unbridled slip. May the heart's best impulse ever check and soil the lip. Love one another, the Savior, children obey the Father's blessed command. Love one another, the Savior, children obey the blessed command. Love is much too pure and holy, friendship is too sacred far, for a moment's reckless folly, thus to desolate and mar. Love one another, the Savior, children obey the Father's blessed command. Love one another, the Savior, children obey the blessed command. Oh, the depth of the riches of God's saving grace, flowing down from the cross for me. There the debt for my sins by the Savior was paid in His suffering on Calvary. Oh, the depth of His wonderful love, flowing boundless and full and free. And the debt for my sins was all paid in His suffering on Calvary. All my heart humbly bows in His presence today, when I think of His agony. By His stripes I am freed from the bondage of sin, through His suffering on Calvary. Oh, the depth of such wonderful love, flowing boundless and full and free. And the debt for my sins was all paid in His suffering on Calvary. Oh, what marvelous mercy, what infinite love, what immeasurable grace I see. By His blood I am cleansed,
turns away wrath, but harsh words stirs up anger.
You know, people who would never think of carrying a weapon around, a big knife or a gun in their hip, have got an even more dangerous weapon with them all the time. James speaks of it this way, in James chapter 3. He says, "The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell." The tongue. You know what that's talking about, don't you? It's not the physical part of our body. It's the part of it that's attached to our heart. Because from that heart also comes fingers that send out texts and tweets and Facebook rants. I mean, they're just as much a world of evil among the parts of the body. God gave us the gift of communication. The gift of being able to connect heart to heart with people through words and even gestures, through eye contact. And He intended for that to be a gift so that as humans we are bonded together and so His truths can be communicated. But it is so easy to use that communication the wrong way. That's why we are taught in Ephesians chapter 4:29, Paul says that we're to use speech building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. That is God's command for us. But how do we get there? How do we avoid using speech in damaging ways? And this applies to big people and little people too. In fact, I can remember from my childhood some little people face-to-face screaming matches with neighborhood kids and witnessing them and being involved in them myself. And I can remember some arguments with my sisters. I know you don't believe that could ever happen, but honestly it did. And here's our tendency as humans. When we're upset about something, when something has hurt us, when someone has said something that hurt us, or they've done something to us, we react in one of two ways. We either blow up or clam up. Getting angry is not wrong in itself. It is not sinful in itself. In fact, ideally, anger can be used to bring solutions to bad situations. You know, for example, let's say on the lowest level, you drive through a restaurant and you pick up an order and you get home and discover that part of the order is missing. What do you do about it? Or the anger that makes you call the police, or actually, on the lowest level, the right way to handle this is that you call the restaurant and say, "Hey, just wanted you to know my fries weren't in the order." And usually they'll say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Give me your name. Next time you come through, we'll give you a free order." Or you could go back and say, "No fries in my order. I ordered them, I paid for it." You say, "Oh, we're so sorry about that. Let us take care of it." Or you find out that one of your neighbors has been scammed. And you can just feel the anger start burning within you. That injustice, that someone who was vulnerable was taken advantage of. And that anger causes you to call the police. And to go over and console your neighbor. And say, if anybody ever comes with an offer like this again, give me a call. Don't say yes to them until you check it out. I've had some experience with these things. Let me talk to them. And so, if you handle it that way, your calm and respectful complaint will actually help the restaurant. Hopefully they'll look at their systems and say, how did we miss that? We don't want that to happen to people. And it will help them to be able to take care of you and satisfy you. That's what they want. And in the case of your neighbor, the help that you bring to your neighbor may prevent someone else from being harmed by that criminal. So that's how anger is supposed to be used. That's why God gave us the gift of anger. It's a shot of nitro in the engine that gives us a boost. It gets us moving. It motivates us. It overcomes apathy. It makes us move past the inconvenience of taking action. That's what anger is supposed to do with us. But way too often, anger becomes something that is corrosive to relationships, to our own heart. And so one way of reacting to anger is just to seethe with anger. For example, about that shorted order. And not do anything about it. And the result of it is that you get more and more angry inside. You're angry with the restaurant. You'll never go back to that restaurant again. They robbed me. And when you talk to other people, they say, I can't believe what they did to me. I got all the way home and discovered there were no French fries in it. And besides that, if that worker paid a little better attention, and I know that person. I used to think that he was a pretty good guy, but now I know he's an irresponsible jerk. And that's one way to react to it. You see, you don't do anything about it. You don't take action. You don't respectfully go back and say, just thought you ought to know you shorted me French fries. Or another reaction is to blow up, to march back to that restaurant, and to throw a fit. I mean, because if you don't throw a fit, nobody's going to pay attention to you, right? So you throw a fit, you're jumping. French fries! My French fries! You know what made me think of this sermon? I get an email every week from a magazine called Bicycling Magazine. And somebody in Australia, there were some bicycle riders doing a joint ride, and they pull up to a stoplight. For some reason, this guy jumps out of his car and starts throwing a fit. And one of the bicycle riders toward the back of the pack had a camera on him, and he caught it. And the guy, he flings his sandals off, and he gets out of that car, and he's going like this. And these two bicycle riders are standing there just calmly waiting for the light to change. You have no idea. He's saying some pretty nasty things, although to us it wouldn't sound nasty because he's in Australia. And their curse words are not words that we recognize as curse words, but I know what they are. That's why I didn't show the video to you. I don't want to teach you any new words. And then he gets back, starts getting back in the car, and he jumps back out of the car and starts yelling at the guy again. He goes right up to this guy in the bicycle. And one thing you can hear him say is, "Get off of that bicycle! Get off of that bicycle!" I don't know if he wanted to punch him when he got off the bike, if he was afraid to punch him on the bike or what, but I noticed something else about this video. Whoever posted the video on the internet did not smudge out the license plate. So the people who did not recognize the guy could relatively easily find out exactly who he was. So all over Australia, the whole country knows who this guy who made himself look like a fool is. It obviously was no reaction to whatever was going on. But I wonder sometimes if that's not how we look at times. Now, I'm going to guess that not one of you ever marched into a Burger King or a Wendy's or a McDonald's and threw a fit like that. But where it could be captured is if you've got one of those closed circuit security cameras in your home. Isn't that where those things usually take place? Huh? Huh? When you have a pattern of clamming up, you stuff your anger and it builds up and it starts poisoning your heart. And then it ferments into a stinking glob of resentment and bitterness. And sooner or later it's going to come out. And when it explodes, it's not pretty. And what started as somebody hurting you or even unintentionally depriving you of something you needed becomes a mess that you made it into. That's why the Apostle Paul, he quotes Psalm 4 in this very familiar passage. And Psalm 4 ends with a statement, I will lie down and sleep in peace. But look what he says about midway through. Paul says, in your anger do not sin. And then he quotes from the Psalm, do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. Ah, you see what that's about? A lot of stuff is thrown at you during the day. You react to it. If you hold on to that, you won't sleep well, and the next morning will be just as bad as the night before. That's why he says. Now some people, they interpret this, okay, that means we're going to get this fight done, even if we have to stay up all night long fighting about it. You think that's what the purpose of that is? I don't think so. He says, you learn to release things, because if it builds inside of you, it's your fault. And that's where the solution to this starts, is taking responsibility for our part. Because I guarantee you, people will say things, they will do things to you that you have no control of. But you do have control of how you respond to them. And so the solution is not to clam up and stuff it, and not to blow up or maybe stroke out, but to focus on the solution and not the problem. You see, when you focus on the problem, what you end up doing is you talk to others about the problem. I can't believe what she said to me. Did you hear what she said to me? Look, did you see the text that she sent me? I got the text right here. Here, I'm going to send the text to you. By the way, send the text to 2 or 3 friends so we can talk about it and see what their response to this text is. And so you talk about the problem, you think about the problem, you obsess about the problem, about the hurt that you received. And then you feel sorry for yourself. And you focus all your energies on who's at fault, not on the solution. It almost always leads to angrily confronting the person that you're angry with, and that never ends well. I'm not saying that confronting is not important, but an angry, out of control confrontation never brings a good result. Let's try to talk about some practicals on this. And the children in here may identify with this. You know, here's a possible problem. Your children won't clean their room. Now, I know none of the families in here have ever or will ever experience this, so therefore I can safely bring this hypothetical situation up. Yeah. And so, when they don't do that, and you say, okay, it's time to clean your room, and they go in and they pick up one thing, and they see there, you look in and, you know, the smell hits you, and the chaos hits you. And what can easily happen is that you can use the decibel system. of trying to get a child to comply. You know how that one works, right? Clean your room. I said, clean your room. I said! And so when you finally get high enough, they'll do what you say, right? No, that doesn't work that way. Because what happens is, they learn that you're not going to do anything, but you're just going to yell. And so, children have this devious way of just letting their parents go crazy, and they don't do anything. So, what is a solution-oriented approach to this? Well, remember that his messy room is not a personal attack on you. He's starting to think that it is. I'm trying to keep my house neat. This kid is throwing a bomb in the middle of the house. So you have to calm down, think through a solution. You say, well, what motivates my child? Video games? Riding a bicycle? How can I help the child see the benefit to him? Because he says that it's all about me, that it's to make me happy that I want him to clean the room. What benefit would be to him? And then you can calmly explain to the child that that filthy room is an insult to the family, and that his family loves him, they care about him, and you want to help prepare him for life. And when all those things don't work, you can always hire a hazmat team to clean the room and take it from his allowance. And here's one I've run into. I mean, this one seems so implausible, but if you have lived with a spouse for enough years, you've experienced this. Your spouse squeezes the toothpaste in the middle. Now, everyone knows that you're supposed to squeeze it from the end. Okay, so you get all the toothpaste out of it, but your spouse squeezes it from the middle. And what I usually find is when this is one of the complaints, it's not about toothpaste. It has nothing to do with the toothpaste tube, because there's a simple solution. You go to the Dollar General store and you buy a $1 tube of toothpaste and say, here, this is yours, leave mine alone. Right? Because another complaint is leaving the cap off the toothpaste tube. Right? And it's not about toothpaste. And usually it's one of those things, and you put the tube back on, the cap back on. Or just squeeze it from the back and get it straightened out before you use it yourself, and it's no problem. I mean, how long does it take? It's no effort at all. But if there's some other things in your marriage that are irritating you, it'll come out in the toothpaste. And some people have even gotten the extremes of squirting the toothpaste on their spouse. Don't do that. I shouldn't have even brought that up, because now in the heat of battle, somebody's going to do that. If you've got toothpaste stains on your shirt next Sunday, I will know what's going on. So what's going on? Why are you upset about the toothpaste? Why are you taking it personally? You have to ask those questions. What is really going on? Am I stuffing some anger, some resentment? Are there some things I need to say in a calm, respectful way, instead of holding on to them and having it come out and complaining about the toothpaste tube? And so, maybe the place to start is this. I have something to confess to you. I have been feeling resentment toward you. Will you forgive me? You're thinking, wait a minute, Tim. The fault is his fault. Why would you start by saying that? Oh, no, wait a minute. Whether the problem is that he squeezes a toothpaste tube in the middle, or that you were in a gathering together and he never introduced you to his friends, and to you that screams disrespect, that everybody else in the world is more important than you. Or maybe it was some other offensive thing. And that's what's really driving this. And so, sure, there's some fault. But holding on to resentment and letting it grow into a seething anger that causes bitterness inside you, that's your fault. And you have to take responsibility for what is yours. And so you start by asking forgiveness for your sin before you could even enter into a conversation and say, last week when we were with so-and-so, I felt disrespected. Now there's more than one way of saying that, isn't there? You can say, you never respect me. When you start using nevers and always, be careful, because it's almost always not accurate. See, I use always. And so you might want to say it this way. I felt disrespected. We were with these friends, you never introduced me, you kind of ignored me. I felt disrespected. Now, as a husband who has done that, I know how I feel when I hear that. Oh, you fool! I never wanted to do that. I got so distracted, so caught up in what I was doing, that I forgot to be respectful of my wife. How could I do that? That's a hard thing to admit about yourself. That the most important human being in my life, I did not put first, but I let other people be first. And I took her for granted. And so she had good reason to be angry with me. But until I knew about what was causing it, and it sure wasn't toothpaste. Notice I'm talking about this because she's not here. I asked Brenda to stay at home today because I was going to talk about her. Now, she's actually in an optician's class in Independence, Ohio. It's necessary to keep her license. Why do they set them on Sunday mornings? A bunch of pagans set those things up, I think. Optical pagans. Anyways, let's go back to our original text. A soft answer or a gentle answer turns away anger. Remember how we started by talking about how James says that world of evil that sets the whole course of life on fire, the tongue, speaking to one another. Many of our relationship conflicts are provoked and fueled by angry speech. And how many times we hear, I can't talk to him about it, he just gets angry. Or, after what she said to me, I'm not sure I can ever forgive her. Those words hurt deeply. When I was a kid, there was this little chant that we used to use. Maybe you know it. If you do, say it with me. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Who are we trying to convince? Those words hurt way more than the sticks and stones. I've healed from the bruises. From the little fist fights I had with friends, those are long gone and forgotten. But the words can be brought back up. They do hurt. And so how do we learn to say things that benefit others, as Paul says in Ephesians 4:29? That things that are edifying, that build people up instead of tear them down. Since that is our mission, in loving God with our heart and soul and mind and strength, and loving our neighbor as ourselves, we ought to want to build others up and help them instead of tearing them down? Well, the way we handle angry words that are thrown at us in these volatile situations can make a big difference. There's an author that I have enjoyed and learned a lot from named Jay Adams. Jay Adams has written some books on counseling, a biblical approach to counseling. He calls it, a technical term, nouthetic counseling. But it's a biblically oriented approach to counseling. And he points out a research study that was done and published in the Journal of Abnormal Psychology. And the conclusion of it was, intense verbal aggression led to more retaliatory verbal aggression than did mild distraction. Now, that's gobbledygook. Let's see if we can look at it as a diagram. In fact, I'm going to use my pointer, which I never get to use. So you might want to put your dark glasses on in case I get wild with this laser pointer, okay? But notice, these two lines represent a normal range of speech, normal speech, which is calm and under control. And so the husband says something that's outside of the normal range of speech. And notice, when he does that, it goes to his wife outside the normal range of speech, and so she sends something back to him starting outside the normal range of speech. And notice how this is getting wider. It escalates. He says something irate. And she says, "Who are you to talk to me that way?" And he says, "I'll talk to you that way if I want to talk to you." And she says, "Oh, you think you will talk to me that way if you want to?" You know how this thing goes, don't you? It just goes. It starts with one statement that lacks control, and it starts to blow up. And you find yourself drawn into it like you can't resist it, right? But you know what's happening? And it always does this. And so into that, we bring the scriptures. Oops. A gentle answer turns away anger. Because it works the opposite. If you just flip that thing upside down, and if someone says, "I'm really upset with you." "Oh, is that right? If I've done something wrong, I want to correct it. Help me to see what it is." "Well, it just seems like you did it last week also." "Oh no. Let's work on this. And try to avoid this happening in the future." "Okay. Maybe we can talk this through." You see the opposite of that? You can escalate it or you can de-escalate it. When our son Micah was a student at Kent State, he had to work, had to find ways of paying for tuition and room and board. We helped as much as we could. It was limited. He borrowed a little bit of money, but knew that he'd have to pay it back. And so one year he said, I have an opportunity to be a resident assistant. And the resident assistant is a student who lives in the dorm, who monitors the dorm, and takes care of things there. And so they put him through training. And one element of the training was called verbal judo. He said they all nicknamed it gerbil voodoo. But it was verbal judo, and it has served him well in life, especially as a teacher. Because what it was taking volatile situations and de-escalating them through self-control and calm speech and trying to talk with people to resolve things. And in most cases, unless somebody is really drunk or really high, you can do this. If you show them some attention, if you address their need, and speak to them respectfully and calmly, you can de-escalate things. Aiden started by reading this text from Proverbs for us. Proverbs, I urge you to read Proverbs. And when you read it, you must have a notebook with you. Because you're going to want to write down some references and say, oh, this fits that situation. Oh, this fits this. Oh, this one's about me. And this one too. And this one too. It is full of wisdom. In fact, in the first couple of chapters of Proverbs, he personifies wisdom and talks about it as a person and about the virtue of wisdom and how wisdom comes from God. And here are a couple of Proverbs that touch on these subjects. You know, for example, chapter 15, the heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. If you take part in escalating an argument, who's the wicked one involved in that? I know you want to blame the other person, but you become the wicked one. And chapter 15, earlier, chapter 15, the tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. Do you engage your brain before engaging your mouth? What is it? Engage your brain before putting your mouth in gear? When you speak out of anger, you usually aren't speaking out of knowledge, but out of emotion. And anybody who's worked in customer service can testify to this. And then Proverbs 15:1 again. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. When we speak out of anger, when we are reacting to somebody, when we speak out of frustration, we find that we are not getting closer to what we want. In fact, we're making it more difficult to obtain. And impatience never works. I think of times I've been soldering a copper pipe, doing some amateur plumbing, and didn't wait long enough for it to cool down. I'm impatient. I want to get to the next step. And I pick it up, ouch! And then I have a blister that forms. Maybe you've done that. You've pulled something out of the oven. You've taken a pan and pull it out of the oven with mitts, let it sit there a few minutes, and you got to lift the top off and then remember that it's still hot. And you get a blister. Impatience simply leads to more pain. It does not get us further ahead. In fact, I wanted to save time by what I did, and what happens is I have to stop and tend to burn now. And so I've wasted time. If I wait, I get things done more quickly. And so, shut up, calm down, think it through, and then speak. If you absolutely have to. If you're upset with your spouse, say it to yourself first, away from your spouse. And listen to how it actually sounds. If you've got a digital recorder or an old tape recorder, say it to that and listen to yourself. I think we'd be amazed if we could play back our conversations at the end of the day and hear how we actually sound. Because my guess is there are a lot of times we'd say, ooh, I wish I had not said that. And you cannot unsay things. So stop, think it through, calm down, and then speak if you need to. And always ask, will this get me closer to my goal, or will it make that goal more elusive? And when it comes to human relationships, the more we stir up strife, the more we cause hurt, the more difficult it will be for us to get where we want to be. Final bits of wisdom from Proverbs about self-control. Like a city whose walls are broken down is a man who lacks self-control. A fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. And don't make the excuse saying, I'm just an honest person, I just say what I think. That's not honest. That is a person lacking self-discipline. That is a person without maturity. And unfortunately, in the days of social media, we have more opportunity to act immaturely than ever before. We blurt out things in social media, and it's there. And then you go back and you delete the post. But it's still in the record. It's in people's memories. Some people have taken a screenshot of it. Google has, and Facebook have recorded it forever. Best thing is to be discreet and say little publicly, because it can be harmful. It'll come back and bite you. And so realize that you have the choice to be wise. And I know that we teach our children not to say this word, but I'm going to say it because sometimes it's appropriate. We have the choice to be wise or stupid. Proverbs uses the word fool. And the word fool means a morally deficient person. It means someone without self-control, who acts on impulse, who acts to please himself without regard for others. That's a fool. And so, whether we are a fool or not is in our control. And when we admit that our angry outbursts are in the stupid column, then we're making big strides in becoming mature Christians. This is practical stuff that will affect us every day of our lives. And God has packed Proverbs just full of it. Let's listen to what he has to say. He put those things in there so that we get along better. And so that we can shine as stars and represent Christ well. And so we can live lives that have less stress and less distress from things we've said and done, and from strained relationships.
Create me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Casting not away from your presence, O Lord. Take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me the joy of my salvation, and renew a right spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, O Lord. Take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore unto me
Christ the King, the hope of all who seek him, the help of all who find. None other is so loving, so good and kind. He lives, Christ Jesus lives today. He walks with me and talks with me along life's narrow way. He lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know.